The men who planted trees. Have you ever wondered how much impact a single person can have on the world? Not a king, not a billionaire, not a celebrity, but an ordinary man. A man with no riches, no fame, no army, and no power. Can one simple man, with patience and vision, change the destiny of an entire land, and even generations to come? This is the story of the men who planted trees. A story of hope, of resilience, and of how one quiet act of determination can leave behind a legacy far greater than any monument of stone. The story begins in a forgotten corner of the earth. A barren, dry valley in the south of France. The soil was cracked, the rivers had disappeared, and the villages were falling silent. The people had left. They abandoned their homes, their fields, their dreams. The wind carried only dust and despair. And yet, in the middle of this lifeless land, a lone shepherd walked with his flock of sheep. He was old, quiet, and solitary. His name was Bouffier. No one knew him well. He lived far from the world. But hidden within him was a secret mission. Every day, after guiding his sheep, Bouffier would sit by the fire at night, with a small bag beside him, filled not with bread, not with money, but with acorns. Yes, acorns. Simple seeds, fallen from oak trees. But to him, they were treasures. He examined each one carefully, keeping only the strongest and healthiest. Then, with a staff in hand, he would walk across the barren land. One by one, he planted them. 10, 20, 50, sometimes 100 in a single day. For years he did this. No one saw. No one applauded. No one believed, but Bouffier believed. He believed in the power of patience. He believed in the silent force of nature. He believed that a desert could one day become a forest. At first, nothing changed. The wind still blew hot and dry. The land still looked dead. But after years of persistence, something miraculous happened. Tiny green shoots began to appear. Little oaks stretching toward the sun. The shepherd watched silently. He watered them when he could. He protected them from animals. He never hurried. He never grew impatient. He trusted time, and slowly, the impossible began to unfold. What was once a wasteland began to breathe again. One man. One vision. Thousands of trees. Years passed. The shepherd grew older, but his work never stopped. What began as a handful of saplings had now become a forest. Young oak trees swayed in the wind. Birds returned, building nests on branches that once didn't exist. The sound of leaves replaced the silence of dust. The air became fresher. The streams, long dry, began to trickle with water again. The forest grew like a miracle. But it was no miracle. It was the quiet, consistent effort of a single man. One man, planting one seed at a time, had changed the face of the earth. With water flowing again, flowers began to bloom. Bees returned, buzzing from petal to petal. Animals wandered back into the valley. And soon, the people followed. Families who had once abandoned their homes, returned to the valley. They rebuilt their villages, planted crops, and raised their children in laughter rather than despair. The forest gave them shade, water, and protection. It gave them hope. They never knew the name of the shepherd. They never asked who had transformed the land. But they lived because of him. Sometimes, the greatest heroes are those no one notices. When asked why he did it, Bouffier never gave a grand speech. He never sought recognition. His answer was simple, because the land needed it. He understood something most people forget. Change takes time. Great things grow slowly. And patience is the secret ingredient of transformation. In a world obsessed with speed, he chose slowness. In a world that wanted quick rewards, he planted seeds he might never see fully grown. But still he planted. Every single day. Because he knew the future would thank him. The story of the men who planted trees is not just about a shepherd. It is about all of us. We each carry seeds in our hands. Not always acorns, but seeds of kindness, seeds of discipline, seeds of vision. Every choice we make is a seed. Every word we speak plants something in the hearts of others. And just like the forest, the results are not instant. But with consistency, patience, and faith, small acts can grow into something magnificent. Never underestimate the power of small actions. Because they are the foundation of great change. By the time Bufir was old and frail, the valley had completely transformed. It was no longer barren. It was alive, green, and prosperous. Generations would thrive there, but few would ever know the name of the men behind it all. And perhaps that is the most beautiful part. He didn't do it for fame. He didn't do it for monuments. He did it because it was the right thing to do. True greatness does not shout. It whispers. So, what can we learn? That even in a world full of noise, destruction, and despair, one person can choose to create, to heal, to give. That our greatest strength lies not in what we take, but in what we give. And that every one of us can plant trees. Not just in the soil, but in the hearts of people. Because one act of love, one moment of kindness, one seed of hope, can grow into a forest that shelters generations. The next time you feel small, powerless, or invisible, remember the shepherd. Remember that in silence, with patience, and with purpose, one man transformed a desert into a forest. He did not have wealth, he did not have followers, he did not even have recognition. What he had was faith, determination, and the courage to keep going even when no one was watching. You, too, can plant trees. Not only in the soil, but in the hearts of people. You, too, can leave behind a legacy that outlives you. A legacy built not on words, but on actions, on seeds planted day after day. And perhaps, years from now, long after your name has faded, someone will walk through the shade of the trees you planted. They may never know your name, they may never know your story, but they will feel your gift. And in a quiet whisper of gratitude, they will say, "Thank you." And that was the story of the men who planted trees. A story of patience, vision, and the reminder that greatness can come from the simplest acts. If this story touched your heart, imagine how powerful it could be if you planted your own seeds of kindness, discipline, and vision today. Maybe it's a kind word, maybe it's a small act of generosity, maybe it's the courage to keep working on a dream that seems invisible to everyone else. Each seed you plant has the power to grow into something far greater than you can imagine. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, where we share inspiring stories that help us learn, aspire, master, reflect, and evolve together. Here, we believe that small steps create great journeys, and every seed of wisdom can transform a life. Until next time, remember this: keep planting seeds of hope, because the future is waiting for them to grow. And when it does, you will realize that you were never small, never powerless, and never invisible. You were always a planter of forests.